My father-in-law thought he'd take my company, but one brutal truth made it 50 m. The night was thick with tension, the kind that wraps around you like a cold fog. Jacob stood in the dimly lit conference room, feeling his heart pound in syncopation with the ticking clock on the wall. It was a meeting he'd been dreading for weeks. Across the table sat his father-in-law, Reggie, a man whose smile never quite reached his eyes. He had that slick hair and tailored suit look down, but Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that behind that polished facade lay a storm brewing. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows as if nature itself sensed the impending chaos. Reggie leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "You know, Jacob," he began, his voice dripping with false sweetness, "you've built quite the little empire here. But do you really think you can handle it alone?" It felt like a shot fired in an empty room, echoing loudly in Jacob's mind, tightening his chest. The air was electric, crackling with tension as Jacob's palms grew clammy. How could he ever go toe-to-toe with a man who saw every opportunity as a chance to strike? Then came the first revelation. Reggie pulled out a folder, slapping it down on the table with a flourish. This changes everything," he announced, eyes gleaming like a hawk spotting its prey. And there it lay, crumpled documents and figures that screamed trouble. A startling claim: a competitor had approached him, curious about Jacob's business practices, hinting at a significant vulnerability in their operations. A vulnerability that could leave Jacob vulnerable, open for Reggie to make his move. The lump in Jacob's throat swelled. This wasn't just a business meeting, this was war. Just when the pressure reached its zenith, Jacob felt an unexpected surge of anger. How dare Reggie try to dismantle his hard work? The thought of losing everything made his hands tremble, but then something shifted within him. There was a glimmer of possibility locked away in that mess of papers. Could his father-in-law be exposing a weakness that he could turn into strength? The clock ticked on, and every second felt like gravity dragging at Jacob's resolve. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The gears in Jacob's mind churned wildly. He needed a plan, fast. Instead of crumbling, could he shock Reggie with a counteroffer? Would he finally expose Reggie's hidden agenda? The stakes suddenly felt like they were soaring to dizzying heights. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as Jacob stood up, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Reggie, let's talk numbers," he challenged, his voice steadier than he felt. Outside, the world continued unaware. Sirens blared in the distance, underscoring the gravity of what was happening within those walls. Jacob could feel the eyes of the room on him, but it was his own father-in-law's stare that cut the deepest, a mix of arrogance and surprise. What would Reggie do next? The question hung heavy in the air like a storm waiting to break. For Jacob, the fight had only just begun, but what other secrets lay hidden in that folder? And how far was he willing to go to protect everything he'd built? Jacob took a breath, forcing back the nerves. "Reggie, you think I'm here to squabble over your unsolicited advice?" "No. I came here to make a deal." Suddenly, the weight of his determination crashed over him, replacing the doubts that had once clouded his mind. Eyes locked with Reggie's icy gaze, Jacob noticed the twitch of confusion flicker across his father-in-law's face. For the first time tonight, he saw a crack in that polished armor. "Deal?" Reggie sneered, feigning incredulity. "You're in no position to negotiate, Jacob. You're barely holding the reins as it is." The confidence in his voice hung heavy, yet Jacob detected a subtle tremor behind the bravado. He had his opening. "Let's talk about that competitor, shall we?" Jacob pressed. "You think they're just going to swoop in and take control?" But what if I offer them a partnership instead? The boldness of his words echoed through the room, and for a moment, silence enveloped them. Maybe it was the desperation or a flicker of brilliance. Either way, he needed to stand taller. Reggie's smile faded, replaced by the hard, calculating look that Jacob had grown to dread. You think you can just buy them off? He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. They won't play ball with you. Not after they see your weakness. What weakness? Jacob shot back, his voice sharpened by newfound determination. We can pivot. I can adapt. While you and your precious competitor are standing still, I'll be implementing changes and growing right under your nose. The tension was palpable, thickening the air with unsaid words. Jacob could feel the adrenaline mixing with dread, and yet he stood firm. This wasn't just about business anymore, it felt personal. Do you even realize what you're up against? Reggie's voice dropped an octave, losing all pretense. This isn't just business, it's my legacy on the line. You think you can outsmart me? Jacob felt something crack inside him. The threat in Reggie's words set ablaze a sense of indignity. This isn't just your legacy. It's my life. I built this from the ground up, and I'm not letting you rip it apart. The two men locked eyes, the tension coiling tighter as Jacob realized that they weren't just fighting over numbers or shares, they were entangled in a raw struggle for validation, respect, and family ties. Reggie leaned back, folding his arms across his chest, and a slow smile crept back onto his lips. Interesting play, Jacob. But you're missing one crucial detail. Jacob's heart raced. What detail? Reggie pulled another document from the folder and slid it across the table. The words legal ramifications blared up at him. Righteous anger mixed with uncontainable dread, churning in Jacob's stomach. I have eyes everywhere, boy. The moment you even think about striking a deal with them, you'll be signing your own death warrant. Play nice, and you might just save your little empire. Refuse, and, well, he raised his eyebrows, letting the silence throb, the walls felt like they were closing in. Jacob's mind raced, heart pounding. How could things spiral so quickly? Could he trust anyone? The shadows in the room seemed to darken, whispers of doubt and fear tightening their grip around him. The challenge before him felt insurmountable, but Jacob knew now he had to rally his forces. Let's see just how wrong you are, Reggie. The sinister glint in Reggie's eye sent a shiver down Jacob's spine. The fight was just beginning, and Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that with each move he made, he was dancing on the edge of a knife. As Jacob left the room, resolve grew within him. This was no longer about defending what he built, it was about reclaiming the very essence of who he was. But as he stepped out into the night, the bitter chill clawing at his skin, he felt a nagging doubt linger. Was he ready to face all the dark forces poised against him? For every choice made, there lingered a threat from every angle, watching him, waiting. The question rattled in his mind: how much was he willing to sacrifice to win this war? And somewhere, a new storm was brewing. Jacob's mind spun as he walked toward his car, the weight of Reggie's threats echoing in his ears. The cold night air nipped at his skin, but it wasn't the chill that sent shivers down his spine. It was the realization that he was wading into deep waters with no means of preparing for the current ripping past him. As he fished for his keys, frustration bubbled inside him. Damn it! He swore, tossing the keys into the air and catching them before they hit the ground. He had to make a decision: stay quiet and let Reggie have his way, or fight back with everything he had. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket. The brightness of the screen momentarily blinded him. It was Clara, his wife. She was the one steady beacon in this swirling chaos, the anchor he needed. He swiped to answer. Jacob. Where are you? Her voice trembled slightly, and he could picture her pacing back and forth, worry etched on her face. I'm just leaving. I had a conversation with your father. Things got heated. He tried to keep it light, but he could hear the tremor in his own voice. Is he threatening you again? Clara's tone shifted, worry deepening into anger. You need to be careful. You know how he is. If he thinks he is losing control, yeah, I know. The knot in his stomach tightened. But I'm not backing down. I have a plan. Plan? She echoed, concern spilling into her voice. Jacob, what kind of a plan? You know he is not just going to sit back and play nice. He hesitated. Did he really want to reveal his thoughts? His mind was ignited with the vision of taking on Reggie at his own game, rallying with the competitor, causing enough disruption to end Reggie's iron grip. But did Clara see this as reckless? I want to reach out to Jonathan at Newich, he said. The words fell heavy between them. Jacob, you can't. He is tight with your father. You think he'll help you? She sounded incredulous. He might. If I show him our projections, if I convince him of the potential we can turn this around, Jacob insisted, his heart racing. Just be careful, okay? Clara sighed. There was fear in those words, a warning he couldn't ignore. Promise me you won't do anything reckless. Promise, he replied, knowing the truth was far more tangled than her faith. As Jacob hung up, he felt fire reignite inside him. He couldn't hide, he had to strike first. Their family business had been built on solid ground, but it was teetering, vulnerable like a house of cards in the wind. In Reggie's hands, it would be crushed. Just as he started his car, a figure loomed in the corner of his eye. Startled, he turned. It was Frank, the night manager for the building, rushing toward him, concern written across his face. Mr. Jacobs. Frank called out, his breath fogging in the cold. You need to see this. It's about the meeting you're gonna want to know. The urgency gripped Jacob. Anything that could provide leverage against Reggie was crucial. Jacob swung the door open. What's wrong? What is it? Frank rushed to the passenger seat, eyes wide, fear radiating from him. I overheard the competitor talking. They've got their eyes on your company big time. I think they have intel on Reggie's plans too. Jacob's heart raced. The storm he expected was finally brewing, and it felt like the chaos was engulfing him. If Frank was right, this was an opening a path to twist the narrative in his favor. Let us go, Jacob urged, adrenaline spurring him on. We're not wasting any time. As they sped off, a new sense of purpose ignited within him. But as the streetlights blurred by, he couldn't shake the feeling that Reggie wasn't the only enemy. Someone else had their eyes on him, ready to strike when he least expected it. What lay ahead? Was this the break Jacob had been waiting for, or was it just another trap set to ensnare him? When they reached the office, Jacob's pulse was thrumming in his ears. He could almost feel the weight of Reggie's gaze piercing through the glass walls. The building felt hollow and distant, even though it housed years of hard work and resilience. Frank led the way, urging Jacob to keep his voice low as they approached the conference room. Listen, Frank whispered, glancing back as if expecting a shadow to leap out at them. I caught wind of their strategy. It's not just about taking over. They want to destroy you. Those words sank deep. Every fiber of his being wanted to rage against that threat, to claw back into control, but panic swirled in his gut. How do you know this? I overheard part of their conversation while stocking supplies. They believe your company's vulnerabilities are a gold mine. Frank leaned closer, his eyes hooded with tension. They're going to exploit everything, from your contracts to your family ties. Jacob's breath hitched in his throat. This was bigger than he thought. This wasn't just a fight against Reggie anymore, it was a battle against everyone circling like vultures. Did you catch any names? Frank shook his head, frustration etching lines across his forehead. No. Just snippets. But they're planning a meeting tomorrow to put their strategy into action. We need to act fast. The urgency settled into Jacob's bones. What do? We need intel. If we can get evidence of their plans or find a way to disrupt their momentum, we can turn this around. Frank's voice rose, full of fervor. Jacob felt a flicker of hope. But how do we do that? Jonathan, Frank said simply. Reach out to him. He might be playing both sides, but he has the ties we need to infiltrate their plans. If he is on board, we could gather crucial information. A chill ran down Jacob's spine at the mention of Jonathan. Could he really trust someone so close to Reggie? The doubt knotted his stomach even tighter. But he had no choice. This was about more than just his company, this was about his family's future. Clara's fear echoed in his mind. If he didn't take a risk, that could be the end. All right, Jacob said, steeling his resolve. I'll contact him first thing in the morning. As they stepped out of the darkened conference room, Jacob's phone vibrated in his pocket again. This time, the screen glared stubbornly, illuminating anxiety in his chest. It was a text from Clara. Where are you? Come home. I need to talk. Tension tightened inside him. What more could happen? He was already walking a tightrope, and adding Clara's worry into the mix felt like too much. I have to go, he told Frank, urgency replacing caution. Wait. If they're on to you, I can't leave her hanging. I need her backing me up. I'll figure things out. Jacob rushed away, his heart heavy with concern for Clara's safety and the choices that lay ahead. When he reached home, the door was slightly ajar, a detail that sent a shock of dread coursing through him. Clara was on the couch, staring blankly ahead, a silent fear consuming her. The air was thick with something unspoken. What is going on? Her voice came out shaky, laced with an unshakable dread. As he stepped closer, his mind was ablaze with fear and frustration. Clara, I found out about a threat against us. I'm planning something. Before he could finish, a loud crack echoed through the room. The window shattered, glass raining down around them like deadly confetti. Adrenaline surged as Jacob dove in front of Clara, fists clenched. Get down! He shouted, his heart racing. What had just happened? Who was coming for them now? In that moment, as the reality of their danger seeped in, the question burned into Jacob's mind: could he shield his family from this impending storm, or was it already too late? Jacob's instincts kicked in. He twisted around, scanning for any movement, any sign of who had attacked them. His heart thundered in his chest as shards of glass glistened on the floor, a reminder of how fragile their safety now felt. Clara huddled against the couch, her eyes wide, fear etched into every feature. Are you okay? He asked, voice low, eyes darting to each corner of the dimly lit room. I think so. What just happened? Clara's voice trembled, a blend of shock and confusion as she glanced back at the broken window that he swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment bear down on him. This was more than just an attempt to intimidate, this was an attack. We need to get out of here, now. Jacob urged, grabbing her hand. He led her to the back entrance, heart racing with every step. As they slipped outside, the night air hit them cold and sharp. Jacob kept thinking about Frank's warning: Reggie was not playing games. They had crossed a line, and now the stakes had risen impossibly high. Where do we go? Clara whispered, glancing at him, searching for assurance. We can head to my brother's place. It's a bit out of the way, but it's safe, Jacob replied, trying to sound calm even as a storm brewed inside him. But as he turned down the alley toward the back of the building, his phone buzzed again. It was a group text from Frank: they know you're involved. Get someone to cover your back. The gravity of those words hit him like a punch. Jacob? Clara's voice was a hesitant whisper now, breaking through his spiraling thoughts. What does he mean? Who's involved? Just some bad people, Clara. I didn't want to worry you, but he paused as another crash echoed in the distance from the front of the house. We can't stick around to chat. We need to move. They raced through the shadows, breathing hard. The city was eerily quiet, but he could feel eyes watching, lurking just beyond the darkness. Every instinct screamed that they were being followed, but he couldn't afford to glance back. "Stay close," he urged, gripping Clara's hand tighter. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows as they turned a final corner. Jacob's stomach twisted when he saw a figure standing near his brother's front porch. "Jonathan!" Jacob shouted, dread flooding through him. He had hoped to use his brother as a safe harbor, but now it was unclear whose side anyone was really on. Jonathan stepped forward, hands raised, a look of feigned calm on his face. "Jacob, hold on. I'm here to help," he said, but tension dripped from his words. Before Jacob could respond, a sound like thunder erupted above. A helicopter swept into view, its spotlight stabbing through the night like a searchlight of doom. "Jacob, we need to hide. They're coming for you. This way." Jonathan beckoned urgently, darting down another dark alleyway. With the sound of the chopper growing closer, Jacob exchanged a frantic glance with Clara. Fear battled with desperation in his chest. This was supposed to be a safe zone, but as they plunged into the shadows behind Jonathan, Jacob felt the walls close in. What had he really gotten them into? Was Jonathan their salvation or another piece of the tangled puzzle? The air was thick with uncertainty, and with each hurried step deeper into darkness, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that they were diving headfirst into a trap. And somewhere in the depths of his mind, the question echoed, was escape even still possible? The alley swallowed them whole, wrapping them in darkness. Jacob's heart raced like a drumbeat in his ears. They turned sharply, staying low, their bodies instinctively pressing against the cool, damp bricks. "Where are we going?" Clara panted, her breath misting in the cold air. "Just trust me," Jacob hissed, eyes locked on Jonathan. His brother's expression shifted fleetingly, shadows dancing across his face. Jacob gazed back, hoping to find some semblance of reassurance. But all he felt was a flutter of unease. Jonathan led them deeper into the maze of the city, the sounds of the helicopter looming like a beast overhead, its spotlight searching, relentless. Jacob stole a glance behind them, half expecting to see a looming figure emerge. "Stay close," Jonathan urged once more, glancing back nervously. "We need to get to the warehouse." "Warehouse?" Clara echoed, skepticism threading her voice. "What's there?" "I'll explain later. Just move," Jonathan said, urgency etched into every syllable. They hurried through the twisting alleyways, the night feeling heavier with each step. The distant thump of chopper blades was now accompanied by a growing hum of voices nearby. Jacob saw shadows flit between the buildings, and fear tightened his throat like a vice. "Jacob," Clara whispered, pulling on his arm. "What if it's a trap? What if we don't have a choice?" He interrupted, though doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. Moments later, Jonathan halted abruptly, holding out a hand to signal for silence. They crouched behind a dumpster, breaths held. Through the slivers of moonlight, Jacob could see figures in dark jackets moving purposefully down the street, scanning the area. Reggie's crew. The realization sent a chill down his spine. They were closer than he'd ever imagined. "What now?" Clara's voice trembled, fear palpable. "Just wait, we move when they pass," Jacob whispered, his mind racing. The minutes dragged like hours. His thoughts circled back to Frank's message. Did he really make the right call involving Jonathan? Would his brother betray him? As the figures drew nearer, one of them paused, almost looking right at their hiding spot. Jacob held his breath, the world narrowing to that singular moment of tension, then, just as quickly, they continued on. Relief washed over him, but it was fleeting. The chopper hovered nearer, the blades whipping through the air, its light sweeping closer. "Now!" Jonathan urged, leaping from their hiding spot and sprinting toward the mouth of the alley. Jacob and Clara followed, adrenaline lending speed to their steps. They burst into the main street, headlights flashing from passing cars. Jacob felt utterly exposed under the chopper's searchlight, the sense of danger amplifying tenfold. They dashed across the road, skirting under a hardware store's awning. There. The warehouse. Jonathan shouted, pointing down a side street lined with industrial buildings. They took off again, racing towards the looming structure. The neon sign buzzed, spelling out warehouse like a beacon of hope despite the chaos surrounding them. The heavy metal door loomed ahead, and Jonathan pushed it open with a calculated shove. "Inside!" he commanded. They piled in, panting, the doors slamming shut behind them. The interior was a labyrinth of old crates and machinery, shadows gathering in each corner. Just their luck chasing safety into a dark, cluttered warehouse. Jacob stood still, straining to listen as the sounds outside faded. Was it over? "I hope you know what you're doing, Jonathan," Jacob said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rising tide of doubt. "I do," Jonathan replied, but the tension in his voice hinted otherwise. "But the truth comes at a price." "What truth?" Clara asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. Jacob's heart sank. What was Jonathan hiding? "I'll explain everything," Jonathan began, but just then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from outside, accompanied by muffled voices. They were back, and this time, they were not taking chances. Jacob's stomach dropped. They weren't safe. Not yet. Not ever. As the fear pressed in, Jacob knew one thing: there were secrets buried deep, and whatever Jonathan had to reveal might change everything. Would it mean salvation, or doom? "Prepare for anything," Jacob whispered. What would he do if the truth was more dangerous than the chase? It happened in an instant. The heavy footsteps grew louder, rushing toward the door. Jacob's heart pounded in his chest, quickening to a frenetic beat as fear pooled in his throat. "Get down!" Jacob barely managed to whisper, pulling Clara close while Jonathan's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. They crouched low behind a stack of crates, the smell of dusty wood and rust lingering in the air like a warning. Clara trembled beside him. Jacob could feel her body tense, her breaths quick and shallow. "Do you think they saw us?" she whispered, glancing towards the door, holding tightly onto Jacob's arm. "I don't know," Jacob replied, every muscle coiled tight. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had entered a trap designed for them. Jonathan peered over the edge of the crates, straining to catch a glimpse of what was happening outside. "We need to move, and fast." Before Jacob could respond, the door creaked open, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the flickering light outside. Jacob's stomach dropped. It was Reggie. He stepped inside the warehouse, flanked by two burly goons. "Search the place. They can't have gotten far." Reggie's voice was a low growl, dripping with menace. As the men began to sweep the room, Jacob's mind raced. He scanned the area, looking for anything that might help them escape. The shadows loomed larger, and he could see the shapes of crates stacked high in the dark corners. "Think we can sneak out the back?" Clara whispered, her eyes wide. Jonathan shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's no back exit. Only one way out." The thought of running into Reggie and his men made Jacob's heart pound louder. They'd be outnumbered and trapped. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, and he felt the walls closing in. Desperation clawed at him. "Listen," Jacob was about to suggest a diversion when suddenly, a loud crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the warehouse. The three of them froze, eyes locked. Had someone entered from another entrance? Or was it one of Reggie's men? "Go check that." Reggie barked at his goons, and all three of them veered toward the sound, their footsteps fading. An opportunity. "We should make a run for it now," Jacob urged, adrenaline surging through him. "Wait, we can't just bolt." "We don't know what's back there," Clara protested, her panic evident. Jonathan's gaze steeled. "We have to, it's now or never." With a nod of agreement, they darted forward, slipping from behind the crates. Jacob's heart raced as they moved, every sound amplified the clap of their shoes against the concrete, the steady rhythm of their breathing betraying their fear. They reached the back of the warehouse, finding another set of double doors. Jacob pushed against the metal, and it creaked open with a heavy groan. Beyond it lay a dimly lit hallway, the walls a maze of peeling paint and rust. "Do you think this leads outside?" Clara asked, her voice tremulous. "Better than staying here," Jacob remarked, taking the lead. He squeezed through the doors, heart pounding, each crackle of the floorboards underneath echoing in his ears, but when they reached the end of the hallway, disappointment and dread fell over them. A solid metal door stood in front, locked tight. Jacob turned to Jonathan, eyes searching. "Do you know how to get it open?" Jonathan shrugged, biting his lip. "I don't know." Before he could finish, a loud bang came from the main warehouse, followed by a shout from Reggie. "They're in here." Time halted. Jacob felt the weight of impending doom pressing against him. "This can't be it!" he exclaimed, panic rising like a tidal wave. Suddenly, Clara huddled closer. "Jacob, what do we do now?" Jacob scanned for any escape route, but fear clawed at his chest. Desperation took hold. Somewhere in the darkness beyond that door lay their chance or their end. "I have an idea," he breathed, determination igniting within him. What was it? Would it work? The seconds dragged as the pounding footsteps approached, his heart raced as he prepared to take a leap into the unknown. Would they escape, or was this the moment? Everything unraveled. Jacob's mind swirled with uncertainty as adrenaline surged through him. "Go!" he yelled, ready to take the risk, but what if this move sealed their fate? The heavy door loomed before them, an unyielding barrier to freedom. Panic surged through Jacob as the echoes of Reggie's voice faded into the distance. He had to think fast, their lives depended on it. "Clara, stay close," he commanded, his voice steady, despite the chaos inside him. He couldn't afford to show fear. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, heavy and suffocating. "Jacob, we're trapped," Clara whimpered, her hands trembling. "No, we're not. Just give me a second." The metal door seemed impenetrable, but Jacob's mind raced through possibilities. He glanced at Jonathan, who was already searching the walls, running his fingers over the cracks and imperfections, looking for anything that could help them. "Look," Jonathan said quietly, pointing to a small latch above the doorframe, partially hidden under layers of grime. "Maybe we can." "No," Jacob shook his head, dismissively. "If we can't get through, then we'll make them think we can." Inspiration hit him like a bolt. "Come on, help me with this." Jacob stepped back, heaving his body against one of the crates. It toppled over with a crash, reverberating loudly against the concrete floor. Clara gasped. "What are you doing?" she asked, eyes wide. "If they think we're here, they'll check every corner. We need a distraction." Jacob grunted, pushing with all his strength until the crate crashed against the wall, splintering with a deafening crack. Above, the ceiling creaked as if it might cave in. Jonathan cursed under his breath but quickly joined Jacob, tipping another crate over. The rattle echoed ominously through the hallway. Silence fell abruptly, only to be broken by a distant shout from Reggie's men. "Did you hear that?" one of them called out, his voice sharp. Jacob's heart raced. The goons were closing in. "Quick, use this." Jonathan grabbed a broken piece of wood and wedged it through the door handle, securing it from the outside while Jacob pushed more crates into the hallway. Their heartbeat quickened in time with the crashing sounds. "Now!" Jacob yelled, urging Clara to crawl through the opening created by the racks. She hesitated for just a brief moment before Jonathan pulled her through, shouting encouragement. "Wait! What about you?" Clara cried, wide-eyed and panicked. "Just go!" Jacob barked, forcing one last crate against the door. Jonathan followed Clara, slipping through the gap before he turned back to help Jacob. As Jacob squeezed through, he could hear the pounding footsteps approaching, the goons yelling at each other, growing closer and closer. They knew their time was running out. They stumbled into a dimly lit alley behind the warehouse, the cold air slapping their faces like a harsh reality check. Breathless and wide-eyed, they turned to Jacob, who was now shaken, but resolute. "Which way?" he gasped, scanning the shadows. "Left," Clara shouted, pointing to a side street that faded into darkness. They sprinted, adrenaline coursing through them, the clang of metal and footsteps ringing in their ears. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed from the back of the warehouse, followed by one of Reggie's goons shouting in fury. "Get them!" They slipped away. "Keep running," Jacob urged as panic churned inside. They were still being hunted. Ahead, Jacob spotted a flickering light. "This way. We'll find a place to hide." With heartbeats pounding in synchrony, they raced toward the light, not daring to look back, but somewhere deep inside, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still to come. What lay ahead? Would they find safety, or would Reggie and his goons catch up? The question hung heavy in the air as they pushed forward into the unknown. The flickering light grew brighter as they dashed for it, a beacon that promised refuge but also potential danger. Jacob's breath came in ragged gasps, the cold air burning his lungs. He pushed forward, glancing over his shoulder. Shadows danced behind them, shapes that loomed large against the warehouse walls. Their pursuers were relentless. "Faster!" Jacob shouted, urging them on. Clara's face was pale, fear etched into her features, but she kept pace beside him, her determination impressive. They rounded the corner and skidded to a halt before a lurking figure that suddenly loomed in their path, blocking their way. The dim light caught the glint of a knife, and everything froze. Clara let out a small whimper. "Who the hell are you?" Jacob demanded, stepping protectively in front of Clara. "You're not supposed to be here," the stranger hissed, his voice low and menacing. "Turn around now." Jacob took a deep breath. His pulse hammered against his temples. "Look, we're not here to cause trouble. We just want to not my problem," the stranger shot back, taking a menacing step closer. The knife shimmered in the light, making Jacob's stomach drop. He could hear the footsteps of Reggie's goons echoing closer. "Please, we don't have time for this." Jonathan's voice broke through the tension, sounding more desperate than Jacob had ever heard before. Suddenly, the sound of shouts and pounding feet exploded from behind them. The thug's eyes flicked past Jacob, recognizing the impending threat. With a curse, he lunged at them, desperation mingling with fear. "No!" Jacob shouted, throwing himself to the side. They collided, tumbling to the ground as Clara gasped. "Get off!" The stranger snarled, scrambling back, knife still poised. It came down to instinct. Jacob rolled away from the stranger and sprang to his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins like wildfire. "Clara, Jonathan, go!" he yelled, determination fueling his voice. They took off down another narrow alley as the man shouted after them, but Jacob's focus was on the shadows now, the swirling darkness holding danger at every turn. He heard angry shouts from Reggie's thugs, saw shadows darting with purpose, and for a moment, he feared they were already surrounded. "I don't know how much longer we can run," Clara panted, her breath hitching in a way that tore at him. "We'll find a way," Jacob shouted back, though he didn't believe his own words. Panic surged through him. Then, from the edge of the alley emerged the harsh glare of a streetlight, illuminating a figure standing watch. Jacob squinted, anxiety creeping in. "Who is that?" Before he or Clara could react, the figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. It was Sarah, Jonathan's sister, her eyes wide with urgency. "What are you doing here?" "We need to go, now." "Sarah." Jonathan rushed to her side, relief breaking through the tension. "We were cornered. They're after us." The sound of footsteps drew closer. The goons were gaining ground. Jacob felt a knot of worry tighten in his chest. "What about the car?" he begged, Grasping at hope, Sarah shot a glance over her shoulder. It's just around the corner. Hurry! They sprinted after her, pushing through the hastily gathered crowd now forming in the street, drawn by the chaos. Fear had lit the streets with its deadly glow. Jacob's heart raced, the weight of claustrophobia telling him they weren't safe until they were miles away from that hellhole. But as they turned the corner, a shocking sight halted them in their tracks. A massive black SUV waited, idling ominously, like a wolf waiting in the shadows. Would this new ally save them or lead them straight back into Reggie's clutches? Jacob's eyes narrowed as dread sank its icy fingers into his heart. The night was far from over. The tension thrummed in Jacob's chest as they approached the SUV, shadows shifting like dark memories. Clara's hand tightened around his as fear flickered in her eyes. "What are we doing?" she whispered, but realizing they had no other option, he pushed her fear back, trying to stay steady. Reggie's goons were closing in. Every step forward felt heavy with dread, but they couldn't look back. The SUV's driver's side door swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the dim streetlights. "Get in!" Sarah shouted, urgency pouring from her voice. The adrenaline flooded Jacob's veins as he grabbed Clara's arm, urging her forward. They scrambled inside, Jonathan following closely behind, while terror thumped in Jacob's chest with the pounding of the goons' footsteps echoing close. As the doors slammed shut with a heavy thud, Jacob barely had time to catch his breath. The driver, a large man with intense eyes, shifted the SUV into gear, revving the engine as the headlights cut through the darkness. "Hang on!" he barked, slamming the accelerator. The vehicle jerked ahead, tires screeching against the pavement, and Jacob felt the rush of wind and fear collide. Behind them, a chorus of furious shouts erupted, but all Jacob could hear was the thundering pulse of his own heart and the feeling of weight lifting, if only just a bit. "I'm Mark," the driver grunted, eyes focused on the road ahead, lips pressed tight. "I'm here to take you to safety. But we need to move now." Distractedly, Clara glanced back at the shadows but turned quickly to Jacob, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Who is he? Can we trust him?" "Right now, he's our best shot," Jacob replied, grasping at the fragile thread of hope as they careened into the night. They wove through dimly lit streets, the chaos of the city fading behind them, but Jacob's mind raced with worries. How far could they run? Were they really safe? The ghost of Reggie loomed over him like a dark cloud, waiting to rain down destruction. "How did you know we were in trouble?" Jonathan asked, his voice tremulous, filled with the tension of the moment. Sarah heard them. "Some of Reggie's guys bragging at the bar," Mark grunted, weaving through side streets with practiced ease. "I knew we needed to act fast." Relief fluttered through Jacob, but it was mixed with anxiety. Now that they were out of immediate danger, every question clawed at the back of his mind. "How do you know Reggie?" He turned his gaze to Jonathan, searching for answers hidden within his brother's expression. "He had ties with the family before they lost control of the business," Jonathan murmured, glancing at Sarah, who dropped her head, a hint of past burdens weighing heavy. "Things went sour, but it's complicated." "Not nearly as complicated as the mess we're in now," Jacob interrupted. The suffocating pressure built in the SUV, and he felt the need to break the silence, to cut through the tension like a blade. "What's the next step?" "I have a safe house," Mark replied, eyes darting to the rearview mirror, scanning for pursuers. "It's not far from here, but you need to stick together. Reggie won't stop until he finds you." Sarah turned to Jacob, her expression fierce. "You can't let him win. Reggie would do anything for control, you know that. This isn't just about your company anymore, it's about protecting your future." "Future," Jacob echoed, feeling the weight of the word. It buried itself into his heart, squeezing tightly. What future could they possibly have if Reggie was still trying to tear them apart? But deep within, something ignited. It was a flicker, a raw determination that had been buried under fear for far too long. Mark took sharp turns, adrenaline-fueled focus channeling through him, while the glow of city lights blinked past in a blinding blur. With every passing second, Jacob's resolve grew stronger. If they were going to come out of this, they needed to gather strength, to confront what lay ahead. The SUV finally screeched to a halt in front of a nondescript building. Mark turned to the group, intense eyes locking on Jacob's. This is it. Inside. We regroup and devise a plan. The preliminary battle has been won, but this is just the beginning. As Jacob stepped out into the night, the chill of dread mingled with a new sense of purpose. Clara stepped beside him, her eyes holding a flicker of hope. We will fight. Together. With a firm nod, they stepped inside the safe house, shadows trailing behind them. Jacob felt the camaraderie of his family, the weight of every challenge ahead settling like armor. Reggie might have ignited the firestorm, but Jacob would make sure the embers ignited a fight worth fighting, and as they closed the door behind them, sealing out the darkness, it became clear, they would take this battle head-on. The shifting sands of loyalty and vengeance would not define them. They would craft their own fate from the ashes. The storm had raged, but now, from the violence, clarity was born. Jacob stared into the faces of those he loved, gathering strength, as the battle for his company and family truly began. Now fully committed, he could feel the surge of determination, they would reclaim what was theirs. And the war with Reggie could only result in one thing: victory. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming next. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and get the word out. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about how this all turned out. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of taking action.